Check out this quilt behind me. It's a Bargello style quilt that I'm calling Bargello Wave, which is a simple, beginner-friendly introduction into this style of quilts and quilt tops. Because wow, this is dynamic. The movement in itself is enough for a fabulous range of fabric. Just like Patrick Lowe's gold dust fabric, which is what I used, 24 different fabrics. You can use anywhere from, I don't know, 10 to 30, however many fabrics you wanted to do, you can do it. But in this one, I used 24. There's now a pattern attached to it that you can get in my shop where I do go over how to calculate the thickness of the width of fabric if you wanted to do a different number of fabrics beyond 24. So if you've ever seen this style quilt and thought, I wonder how they do it, or it looks way too complicated for me, or I'm not ready for it, trust me, you are absolutely ready for this. Because a quilt doesn't have to have a bajillion itty bitty pieces sliced and diced and sliced and diced a million ways in order for it to be fabulous. So if this sounds good to you, then let's get going. So now I have two sets of these 4.5 inch by width of fabric strips that I'm going to sew in gradient order, like so, just from the start to the beginning, and create a long thing, and then after that I am going to sew them into one long tube. So now right sides together, and I'm going to make sure that the selvage matches because I need to use as much of this fabric as possible. Put my 1/4 inch foot on here just to make it easier. But raw edges together, make sure that they're aligned. Using a 1/4 inch seam allowance in this 1/4 inch foot. Now I'm gonna sew up each one of the strips, one after the other, to get the entire gradient down. And then I'll press it and get to slicing. But for now, it's just the sewing, so I'll let you see a little bit of this because it sounds good. And then I'll meet you on the other side once I've got all the strips sewed. So I finished both sets of 4.5 inch strips and I sewed up the gradient, and ta-da! Look at all of this goodness in this gradient. It's absolutely gorgeous. And as you can see, I matched up like where the thick selvage is, because we're gonna try and use as much as this as possible whenever we trim it, right? And so from here, this long thing, now I'm going to create a tube by matching this raw edge. Sew this up, open up the seams. If you want to instead nest the seams, you do you. And then I'm going to get to slicing. So after this is done, it'll become a tube, like so. That whenever you slice it, you're gonna like rotate the tube to like move the fabric down so then it creates that little swoop, and you'll seam rip whatever that top color is. This may or may not make sense to you, but for now, gonna do this, trim the selvage to where there's still some of it left, like a 1/4 inch. If there's just a smidge of selvage that will go inside the seam allowance, I wanna keep it. So this side, it was easy for me to line all of these up because this is the side that I started from on each pass. Let me just double, triple check, see how they're all lined up, like so. And it just naturally landed that way. So I'm going to trim right here. Toward this one is where it's a little bit thicker of a selvage, but then the rest are good to go. And now I will trim. There we go. So now that edge is even. And we can just cut from this edge. We don't even have to mess with the other one. We can cut from this edge since this is a clean edge. just realized that I was using my paper rotary cutter instead of my fabric rotary cutter. I wanted to show you that I know how to cut with a sharp blade, because people are always loving reading me for how I use my rotary cutter. It's like, yes, I know the difference. It was even labeled. Probably because I need to be wearing these. So I have cut all of my strips here and placed it on my Ironmatic ironing board. And the tip to making sure you have enough for all the strips is to start with the big sizes. So this is the 1 5.5, 2 5s, 2 4.5s, 3 4s, 4 3.5s, 4 3s, 4 2.5s, and the 5 2s, like so. So if you cut out all the big ones first, then regardless of how much you have on either of the sets of the total strip panels, you'll be able to get the 5 2s, no problem. It started with this va-va-voomness. I'm going to need a 4 and a 3.5 here that are going to start right here, which I believe is the plum, and then go to the burgundy at the top. So we have the tubes. This is the plum, right? The plum. So you need to make sure that you have the tube going the right way. So for it to match this is the plum. I forgot what color this is right here. So I'm going to unpick this one right here with my seam ripper. There we go. Like so. So this is the top of this one. Ta-da. And then I'll need the next strip. The next one starts with the burgundy. So with the 3.5, gotta turn it right side out again. Find the burgundy. This is that burgundy color, but we gotta make sure it's going the right way. So this is where I started with this one, right? So essentially I'm just moving it down one, and that gets me to the burgundy. Then seam rip it. Ta-da, see, like so. And then let me go ahead and do one more. The next one is also a 3.5. So I'll grab one more 3.5. Turn the tube right side out. So this was the top of this one, right? Like so. So I'm going to assume this one is it. Does it match? Yeah. This nice deep orange that's going to be at the top here, like so. So see how it started there? Just bring it down one. Ta-da, like this. And so this is the beginning of the quilt. Going to stitch these up at a 1/4 inch seam allowance. Right now, you could undo all of them, but I'm itching to get to sewing. So I'm going to sew these 3 up, show you what it looks like, and then go back and then show you how to finish up, making sure the quilt is all good. Now, I am not going to clip it or baste it because I want to sew. But what you would want to do if you want to clip or baste is just make sure that each one of these intersections is where it needs to be. I found it easier, just in case there's some kind of variance, to just do it by hand. And I should be able to get it, but let's keep me honest. Let me do this first pass, and if it doesn't work out, I mean, as simple as this quilt is, I don't want these intersections not to be crisp. So if I'm not able to do it crisply, then after this, I'm probably going to glue baste. Let's see how it goes. Okay, so far so good. And then I'm on to the next one. Make sure that this one is good. A little closer so you can see. So now I just want to make sure this one hits right there on the intersection. And the next one. Like so. let's check out these seams, see how they went. Ooh. 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 Mm. Oh yeah, for the I mean, it's great. It's great. Who's gonna get that close up to my seams? Yeah, look at that. Look at, ooh, crispy, crispy. So yeah, I'm not gonna baste. So now I will get started with the next one that I prepared. So here I've gone all the way down. So this is as far down as it's gonna go. And then now it's gonna start to go back up. So essentially you're gonna work your way backwards. Same number or width of the strips till you get here, and then you're gonna start increasing. So from here, I'm going to sew these 2 inches and then go back to 2.5, do 2 of those, 2 3s, 2 4s, etc. So I have mostly finished piecing the quilt top. I'm so excited. I did it in 3 sections so it didn't get too bulky on my domestic machine. And then now I'm going to put those 3 sections together, and I'm going to baste that because I want to make sure that it doesn't shift and create frustration over for me on my sewing machine. So just so you can see, section 1 is here. I stopped once it got to the bottom of the swoop. And then section 2 right here, I went up until it got through the 3.5 sections. And then once it got to the bigger section, which is section 3, I put those together. So now I'm going to show you how I baste section 1 and 2 so you can see how I baste. I'm going to use glue instead of clips or pins. But if you don't have glue or want to do glue basting, you can use a clip or a pen. Once again, I just want to eliminate as much frustration once I get over to my sewing machine. So this is a joy-filled experience. So now let's get ready to baste. So to join this section to this section, I'm going to lay this one flat first, just so you can see the seams. I did open them up. Once again, if you want to nest your seams, that's an option. I just chose to do it this way. I'll card here so that you can see my tutorial on nesting seams if you choose to do that. And essentially, I'm going to be matching every time there's an intersection, so it's perfect. Because as I was sewing this, I realized some of them I might have cut on a slight angle, but they were not perfect. And so this will allow me to create more perfection on the seams. Since these are heavier, it could pull and shift whenever I am sewing. I'm gonna use Roxanne's Glue Baste It. I love this for glue basting. That's what it's designed for, but you can also use Elmer's washable glue if you have that. Just gonna put a couple dots right there. And when we get closer, I'll show you. And then just make sure that I line this up right here on the intersection. And then I will heat set it. Like so. Count to 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That's plenty. And since it's been heat set, it's not going to gum up your needles. Now the next one. Don't have to use a lot. And then center that seam right here. Make sure there's light. See that? And I am basting within the seam allowance, so there won't be any glue residue on the front before it gets washed. Now I'm going to do this to every single intersection and then take it over to my sewing machine to sew. Now I'm ready to sew, and it's going to be so simple, and all I have to do is focus on making sure it stays where it needs to with that 1/4 inch foot. So. Oh yeah. Awesome. I can definitely see the benefit of doing this for every row or every column. I want you to see it from a different angle so you can see the lumps and bumps. See, this one is lumpy, bumpy, because this one is longer than this one, and I didn't feel like sorting that out. So now, I just go, I'm kind of pulling on it a little bit. And by the time it gets to the end, it's good. And then it irons out, and it'll quilt out. No one will know the difference. I'll show you a couple different. And most of them like that are just a millimeter or two, so it's really not difficult. That one was just extreme. Now I am doing my final pressing on the quilt top before I put it on my knee-long arm, which I'm so excited about. But for all intents and purposes, this quilt top is now done. And I hope you enjoyed the pattern and tutorial and can make your own. The fabric is available in my shop for you to get in a kit with the pattern in total if you'd like that. It's a great way to use a dynamic range, putting it all together to create a BAM for a quilt. If you enjoyed this tutorial, do not forget to subscribe and hit that bell to get notified anytime a new video comes out. Happy quilting!